Hello, and welcome to the time bending, time blocking system. So what I want to do is look at two different systems. So we have this great book called The 12-Week Year, and we also have a really phenomenal leader in terms of how to take your time management and your leverage to the next level, and strategic coach Dan Sullivan. And so what I want to do first is just outline two systems that are pointing to the same thing. So over here, in terms of time blocking, what we're really talking about here is how do you want to use time, and what can you learn from the experts in the field. And so when I started doing this, I started over here. This is part of the 12-week year. This is Brian Moran's system. And what he does is he says basically in any given day, you want to block your time in terms of strategic activities, in terms of buffer activities, or in terms of breakout activities. And let me describe what those three are, and then we'll go into Dan Sullivan's system over here on the types of days. Because what Dan Sullivan of Strategic Coach does is he says, it's too much to jump around throughout the day. What he likes to do is just have one, if you will, guna, to borrow an Ayurvedic term, for that day. So what is a buffer activity? That's where you've got a lot of different communications and little things going on. What is a focus day or a strategic block over in Brian Moran's system? This is where you really have a focused chunk of like getting it done. Things that require deep focus, that require undivided attention. And if we look at this, actually from an Ayurvedic perspective, the buffer activities are they're really actually quite vata, if you will, right? There are a lot of attention going this way and that way and that way. And we want on those days, if we actually look at the gunas, this is the guna of Rajas. And Rajas is the energy that goes out, and it's very active energy. So on buffered blocks or buffered days, and I'll show you how I've chosen to go to Dan Sullivan's system over here and just have day blocks because it helps me actually relax, align to whatever I've said, like, hey, that's what this day is going to be all about. And I start to actually develop a weekly rhythm that, like, hey, every Monday and Tuesday for me are for these more vata type, rajasic type activities. If we then look at the strategic blocks or the focus over here, these two are really connected. And what this is the energy of pitta, if you will, where there's a lot of direction, and there's a lot of fire, and there's a lot of, obviously, of focus and of strategy. These are the mental attributes of sadhaka pitta, of the part of our awareness that likes to see where we're trying to go and get us there, really make something happen. And that requires undivided attention. So the biggest difference between, if you will, these focus types activities or strategic type activities is that we have focused attention, where again, if we go back to the buffer activities, right, we have actually divided attention. So this is where our attention is going in multiple directions, right? Awesome. Yeah, good. We need to be able to do that. I mean, some of us wish that we could just always have focus days, but at the end of the day, you need time to do the little things that actually prepare you to have focus days. You need to do the things that prepare you so that when you have a strategic block, when you're putting a strategy into action, you know that you did all the little things that lined you up to be able to do that deeper strategic work, that you know that you've aligned the conversations that you've had, the planning that you've had, all that in the right situation so you can actually get the work done. Which leaves these two others, like what's going on over here in terms of breakout and free days. So I'm going to make a little room over here, right? This is interesting that there's a parallel here, and it's a little different. So free days and Dan Sullivan, strategic coach. He coaches entrepreneurs that usually have, he has different levels at strategic coach. The first level is if your take-home pay after all company expenses, after everything, after taxes, is $100,000 or more. But really the groups that he coaches, his other coaches coach them up to $1 million in take-home pay, and Dan focuses on the people who have $1 million plus in revenue, the CEOs that have $1 million plus revenue in their take-home pay after the business is done at the end of the year. So in his system, he's really focusing on high-powered entrepreneurs. A lot of them are quite wealthy and have very successful businesses, and that's why they're wealthy. What he finds is that actually the more you attune to the system, the more free days you have. And I can't remember the number of free days Dan Sullivan has a year, him and his wife who co-owns Strategic Coach, but it's a lot. I think it's somewhere around like 180 a year. And that's obviously like weekends, holidays, and just days off. And on his free days, he is not thinking about work. He is not doing work. He's not doing buffer related activities regarding work. He is not doing work. He may have certain like ideas that he captures, things that come to him, but he is not actively doing work. And neither is his lovely wife. So this is more kapha. This is more where there's flow, if you will. There's more of a, if we can go that this is rajas. I'm not going to go, I don't think it really actually works between sattva, rajas, and tamas, because none of these activities are actually tamasic at all. They're more of just sattva and rajas. So I would say this is more of a sattvic experience of like deep freedom. Sattva is also over here in these focus and strategic days, because we're doing good work in the world. We're really aligned. If our work wasn't aligned, it could be tamasic. So don't worry about making it fit perfectly, but just to understand that free days in Dan Sullivan's system, this is where you block these off first in your calendar to actually start to create some boundaries for the work that you need to do, so that then what's left, right, is a parameter of time for you to do the work that needs to be done in that remaining parameter of time. You get to insert your buffer days and your focus days. So that's how that works. Over in Brian Moran's 12-week year system over here, he's suggesting a breakout block that happens ideally weekly, but eventually up to once a month, which would be like the outset. That would be like a beginner level. So you just start with once a month, where you take a day to a half day minimum. You break that out and you do activities outside of the office that get you into your liminal thinking space. So I'm gonna highlight this. We'll put a special color here, and we'll call it liminal thinking. So liminal thinking literally means thinking that's beyond the threshold. So when we're just doing focused activities and buffer activities, we're bounded by our own thinking. We're bounded by our own strategy. We're bounded by our own to-dos and sometimes they call it the rat race, sometimes it's called the whirlwind, sometimes it's called the hustle, but that like hustle and bustle of our day-to-day, we're in that. It's actually it's considered a limited domain. When we're on free days or breakout days, it's where we actually break out into a different space, and this is outside the office, right? So you're never in the office on free days or in breakout blocks, right? And in that time, you're able to actually get a different perspective. And this is usually where the big, bold ideas come from. This is where efficiencies actually start to really increase, because you're seeing how you're generating a ton of work that actually doesn't need to be done. Those are the kinds of things that actually happen on free days, and on breakout days, it's where you get the next big idea for maybe the next blog post or the next book or the next type of thing that you want to create in the world. Okay, so sorry about that. I don't have my messages turned off. It looks like, as speaking to free days, I'm going mountain biking and fishing this for a 4-day weekend. Awesome. That's a really good example. So now let's pivot over to my calendar. So this is, I'm just showing you, right now it's this week of May 18th. This is my ideal calendar. This is over here in calendars. I just want to highlight, this is where we are. So this is a calendar that I have created, and you can create a Google Calendar really easily. So I remember back in the day, I was trying to get people in the courses over into using an online calendar. And I know many people are going back and forth between using a paper calendar and online scheduling tool or an online calendar. And I just recommend to make the break and switch and just use an online calendar. I would use a journal, or like a cool creative sketchbook, sketch note journal for doing the other things in your calendar that you're doing besides booking your time. So when it comes to time, I so strongly recommend using a digital calendar. I know it was a very hard transition for me 15 years ago when I did it, but I haven't looked back since. So I have a number of people. You can see my calendars. I have a number of calendars I can see at a click. Most of you just have your calendar, but then you can also add an ideal calendar right there. So if it's gonna say here, add a calendar, only because I have coworkers. Does it say add a coworker's calendar? I'm gonna click there. I'm gonna click on new calendar, and then I can title it ideal calendar 2, blah, 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 and then I can create calendar over here. So that's how you add a calendar. And what I want you to do right now is to create an ideal calendar. And you get to choose which system, if you use buffer days, focus days, and free days, or if you decide to use blocks. And if you use blocks, you can do buffer blocks, you can do breakout blocks, and you can do focus or strategic blocks. Like I said, there's a lot of crossover in the system. I just want to develop a similar language here. So I'm going to go over what my current calendar is. And I want to say too, you guys, this at one point in time was a fairy tale for me. I never thought I could have my calendar be like this. It sounded so like a distant dream when I was first learning these concepts. And only now, as I've been practicing this for a couple of, years, not months, but a couple of years, is it so easy for me to align my calendar to what I sense can help me make the most of my time. Right. And for many of us, that's what we really want. We look at things like time management, but what we really want to do is bend time. We want to bend time to meet our dharma, right? So that our dharma is arising in the field of time. How do we bend time so that it meets the evolving needs of our dharma? This calendar, ideal calendar, changes for me quarterly. I come in here and I just click on my ideal calendar and I move things around and I tweak it quarterly. So let's go over what I have right now, just because it'll give you some ideas. So Monday and Tuesday, the first thing to notice up here is their buffer days. These are days that I do a lot of communication, a lot of planning. I'm setting myself up for my focus days. Today is a buffer day. So even though I'm recording a video, the reason I'm recording this video today on Monday, even though it's not a focus day, is I dove into the last point of my focuses for the week. This week, and a big chunk of my week this week is finishing the next section of Awake Living. So I dove in and saw what the next action was, and because I'm so prepared for the week ahead and my team's lined out and whatnot, because I did all this planning for the week and team meetings, I jumped in and I actually have a little bit of time to do a focus day activity. So that's what happens when you get ahead, is you get more and more focus time. Okay, so Mondays and Tuesdays are buffers days. I do team meetings mostly in the morning on Mondays, and in the afternoon, I can do buffer day activities, or like today, if I have extra time, I can do a focus day activity. Tuesdays is when I do recordings. I do a lot of Facebook Lives and podcasts and Coach of the Month interviews and yoga health coaching, mastery coaching gym conversations. And then you can see I don't have anything blocked in the afternoon. So usually in the afternoon, I'll go more into focus day time as needed. Wednesday, focus day. So unless something is an exception, it doesn't usually get scheduled on a Wednesday or a Friday. So Wednesdays and Fridays are just for moving strategic initiatives ahead, big chunks of things that need to get done. And I've outlined all these in smarts. So when I look at my smarts and my due dates and my deadlines, I outline my smarts in Smartsheet. This is Smartsheet. This is it's an app. There's a free version and a paid version. We're currently using the paid version. So when I look in, like, these are all the team priorities for this whole quarter. Most of you just have this for you. There's just your priorities, which should really be one of these blocks. It shouldn't be more than about that much stuff. Just the stuff to the green, just that much stuff for you. You can see my name's on all of that stuff. That's all me. And when I go in here, then if in the beginning of the week, as part of my buffer activities, I'm going to go into here and I'm going to see, like, what's due. Where are my due dates? Make sure I'm online. Okay, air emails, water emails, etc. Right? So I make sure what I need to get done gets scheduled then in that focus time. I also use Basecamp, which is a project management tool, where I'll then update in the project management tool the things that need to get done. that way, when it's time to focus and do the stuff either in strategic blocks or focus days, I know exactly where to go. All the links are there ahead of time, all the pre-work. If I needed to ask someone, hey, where do I get this or that? All of that is updated in the project management tool, and I'm ready to go to work. Okay, so here I am in my base camp. This is my project management tool, and when I click on my assignments and it comes to my assignments with dates, this is where we are, right? We're on Monday. So one of these things gives me all the links that's involved with this project that I'm working on this week, which is this Awake Living course. And there's what I want to show you is then all the activities this week are going to line up with what's on my smarts for what I need to get done. And then what I can do is I can then schedule stuff into the time blocking, right? So again, if we just look at the time blocking section of the calendar, I now know what I'm focusing on when I have chunks of focus time, right? I know what I'm focusing on when I have chunks of focus time. Sometimes I finish things early. Like I said, today I finished my stuff early, so I can do my focus activities then. And some people won't do that. Like Dan Sullivan would actually recommend that on buffer days, you just do your buffer activities. When you finish what you set out to do, you're done. You have free time. For me, I like to get ahead on my focus stuff. I have one of my Gallup strengths is my number one Gallup strength is focus. So I love to get focus related activities done. As far as we talk about these different systems, right, like what's working in these different time systems, and what I like to see is where things are quite similar and have a lot of overlap and where they're different. So again, in these systems, what we find is that some people do time blocking, some people do days. You want to get the concept and then make it work for you. Okay, so going on with these different times of day and how it works with either project management tool. Not all of you will use one, but I highly recommend using a project management tool. Not all of you will use a spreadsheet to track your priorities, but I highly recommend that you do. You don't have to use Smartsheet. Google Spreadsheet's great. Excel is great. Where you might want to use Google is where you're communicating with a lot of people that need to have their eyes on the same thing. Okay, so now if I click on my calendar, this is what this looks like. So all the individual, if I take off ideal calendar, this is what my meeting rhythm looks like. If I add my course calls where I'm talking to people, you can see Thursday is a coaching day. That's when I have all of my coaching calls. What that enables me to do is on coaching day, I'm very focused on the course members, and I'm able to have time after my calls to do all the little follow-up activities that make sure that we capture different parts of those calls that we can, some of those we'll actually put into blog posts or podcasts. Some of those there'll be screenshots I want to share on the forum. So it gives me a little time to do all those follow-up activities that are related to coaching. It'll also help me update some things that if I want to talk about something in a marketing campaign or in a blog post or add it to a book, it gives me a little time to capture, right? All those things that just happened in a live coaching call, which is a performance-related activity. Any of you who are speakers or doing events, this is a focus-related activity. That kind of a day when you're out there, you're presenting. This is when you want to be on your money. Is on these focus type days. So coaching days to me are actually a focus day. They're not a buffer day. And so if you really look at my calendar overall, I'm looking at 2 to 3 focus days a week. So I want to talk about one more thing in here before we go into, let me show you a few more things. If you look at Fridays, so Fridays are focus days or free days. So I often will take Friday off. If I finish all my focus stuff early, the bonus to me is I'm done. I can go have fun. And this weekend, for instance, we're probably going to leave home by about 11 a.m. I'll probably work for 2 to 3 hours in the morning. I might work those hours, 6 a.m. till 9 a.m. and finish a whole bunch of stuff, and then we'll be done and we're going camping. So we're doing a long weekend between then. So it'll be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So then if I go to the next week, I don't have any of these meetings. They're all rescheduled because it's Memorial Day, and I just push a bunch of extra stuff into my buffer day. So that's how things can get messy, but you can rearrange. Now, what I wanted to also show you is if we just simplify this and we just look at Tuesday. So Tuesday is a prime example of a buffer day. On a buffer day, there's lots of meetings, there's lots of conversations happening, there's lots of appointments being kept. So most of my little short appointments or recording sessions happen on Tuesday. My bigger meetings, my longer meetings are these ones that happen on Monday. So I just wanted to give you an example of what this looks like. So your job now is to look at your calendar, and you get to determine what is a typical week for you. And what do you want it to be? We have a flexibility now with time that's unprecedented in human history. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We need to add, we'll put 2 days in for the weekend. So we may have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Let me just repair this line. Saturday and Sunday. And some of you might choose to work on Saturdays or to work on Sundays. I know a lot of people who do their best writing or deep thinking time or things that require a lot of concentration in blocks that happen on the weekends. And sometimes it helps to actually do this as a breakout kind of activity where you leave the office and you figure out, hey, for the next chapter of my life, how do I want to work with time? When is the best time of day for me naturally to focus? Okay, let me leverage that. When's the time that I should just do the most meetings or quick connection or whatnot? There's a reason I put that in the beginning of the week. I put it in the beginning of the week because otherwise I feel kind of out of control for the rest of the week. It's not because I love showing up Monday morning at a meeting. It's not. Ideally, Monday morning, sometimes it was just me and my egoic self. I'd probably do some deep, honestly, I would probably do some deep focus work. But because I have a team and my Dharma is bigger, I noticed for me and the team, this is the best time for us to get on the same page. All right, so that's what you're going to do. You're going to break out this stuff and start to work into Ideal Calendar. There's another Ideal Calendar video coming up. I just want you to start thinking about it now in terms of time blocking. I want you to look back at the schedule that you currently have. If I were to go back to a year ago last September, it's all grayed out because it's in the past. That's how this program works. But I want you to see how there's a lot of everything going on a lot of different days. There's a lot more appointments week by week and day by day. And there's not as much blocked out time for either the option of having free time or the option of having focus time. So I leave you with that just to get a sense of wow, this really actually works over time. And what skills do I need to improve right away? How can I take my existing calendar and start to see the next phase? And then simultaneously, how can I look at the big picture of where I really want to be and start to orient towards that? So those are your next actions.